Peter Greenberg's Global Travel Update is presented by New Mexico True.
Well, welcome aboard, everybody. Happy Friday, wherever you happen to be. As you can see, we're in Long Island today, capping off a 4-week trip that started in Rome and Barcelona, Palermo, over to Turkey, southern Turkey, then into Greece, the island of Kefalonia, 100 degrees, and then, of course, to 110 degrees earlier this week in Las Vegas for the annual Virtuoso Travel Week, and then flying back to Boston and then to New York last night. Interesting development. I want to share with you a story about connect times and crazy scheduling. It was on a United Airlines flight from Las Vegas to Chicago with a connection to Boston. We're talking about what happened just Wednesday night, 2 nights ago. It was a flight that was supposed to leave at 11:59 in the evening, land in Chicago at around 5:20 in the morning, and then leave at 6:15 the same morning for Boston. That would be yesterday morning. Very interesting story. So if you have the right flight tracking apps, I have a lot of them, whether it's Flight Radar 24, Flight Aware, or Flighty, each of them reported to me that the incoming flight that was going to become my flight had actually landed about 2 hours early or 2 hours earlier, which is great. Aircraft on the ground. We like that. We get out to the airport with plenty of time in Las Vegas, check in, get to the gate. There's the plane getting ready to board, but we don't board. Why don't we board? Was it weather? No. Was it a mechanical? No. Was it air traffic control? No. Listen to this. The plane was waiting for crew. The crew had come from another flight. We were at gate 56. The crew had come from another flight that had landed on time at gate 51. Everything's ready. Everything's perfect. The flight crew from the flight that landed at gate 51 walks over to gate 56. Pilot, co-pilot, flight attendant 1, flight attendant 2, no flight attendant number 3. She disappeared. Nobody could find her. I'm listening to all the walkie-talkie communications at the gate. They got people running all over the airport. No one can find her. They have no idea where she is. They got very embarrassed and then turned off their walkie-talkies because everybody at the gate could hear it. How do you get lost between gate 51 and gate 56? Well, this flight attendant managed to do that. We didn't board for 45 minutes. There was my connection time in Chicago. Not just my connection time, but everybody's connection time. And were there any reserve flight attendants in Las Vegas for United, even though there are other flights there? There were not. Were we allowed to board the plane without the full complement of flight attendants? We were not. There's a safety issue there. I understand that. So we finally left, instead of at 11:55, we left at about 12:45, which meant that my actual connect time in Chicago would be 10 minutes. Our flight landed at the C gates in Chicago. My connecting flight to Boston left from the E gates. Impossible. Well, in the delivery of service is one thing. They didn't do it. But in terms of recovery, United did stand out. When we landed in Chicago and I was fully prepared to miss all my meetings in Boston, wasn't happy about it. There was a woman at the jetway waiting for me and one other passenger. They took us down the back stairs of the jetway into a car, and they drove across the runway and around the taxiways, and they got me up the back stairs on the flight at E8. And the minute we went in, they closed the door. We left on time. However, and that was great that they did that. They recovered very well. But the problem is the airline is operating on flight crew margins and ground crew margins and gate agent margins that are not acceptable. There's no backup plan. There's no plan B. And we're seeing this all over the place. Now, conversely, and by the way, cheers to Tammy at United Airlines in Chicago. She got me where I needed to go, and with not a minute to spare. So thank you for that. But bottom line is, let's talk about the margins here. And to give you an idea about margins, it all gets down to scheduling, doesn't it? I'm going to show you a piece right now that I just took this online the other day. I just picked it at random. It's a flight from either Bismarck to New York through Minneapolis. They're all through Minneapolis. But I want to give you an idea of what Delta posts on its own website as to an agreeable, acceptable connect time between planes. Punch that up there. Can you read that? Bismarck to New York, 40 minutes is all you get in Minneapolis. But look at the second one, 30 minutes or 35. Why are they even publishing this? They know going in, that's physically impossible. Why would you publish flights that you can't support? The only way these things work is if the Bismarck flight lands early, really early. And forget about baggage transfers. I mean, wow. And that's just one example of hundreds, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of examples where they're giving you less than an hour to connect. You know my rule. Give yourself 2 to 2.5 hours, even on domestic flights, to make that switch. Okay, speaking of scheduling, and we've talked about this in previous global travel updates, but this is the best example yet of where we're getting into a very soft fourth quarter and perhaps even a buyer's market. What did American Airlines do earlier this week? It told 1,500 of their flight attendants to please take an unpaid leave. They suddenly have too many flight attendants. So isn't it ironic? United couldn't find one who was lost between two gates, and American has too many. What does that tell you? They've cut back on the number of their flights. Demand is not keeping in touch with capacity. What does that mean in terms of the law of supply and demand? Get ready for airfare drops in spite of high oil prices, because they can't fill the flights starting next month. I'm not talking about August leading into Labor Day. I'm talking September through the end of the year, with the exception maybe of Thanksgiving. So think about that and be aware of it. Yesterday, there was a fare sale. Get ready for pop-up sale fares. There was one yesterday on Southwest, booked by yesterday through, I think, March or April of next year, and get 40% off their base rates on selected flights. Now, granted, it's not every flight, it's not every seat on every flight, but the fact they're doing pop-up sales in August, the fact that American Airlines is asking 1,500 of their flight attendants to take an unpaid leave tells you everything you need to know about how soft the fourth quarter is going to be. In addition, I just saw frequent flyer reward redemptions drop dramatically in terms of the level of miles you needed and the fact that they were even available. We saw some flights available at 8,000 miles. That's unheard of. What does that tell you? They've got a lot of empty seats in spite of high oil prices. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the airfares across the board are coming down. They're not. Get ready for trying to generate revenue from everything else they can do, which brings me up to the story of an airline in Australia called Jetstar 2. It was almost bound to happen. They're now charging for the overhead bin. Want to hear that again? They're now charging for you to be able to use the overhead bin space. Yikes. It's bad enough. But, as one airline does that, they all follow the loser. So get ready for the next round of generation ideas of revenue. We'll see how long that flies. Crazy. Okay. Now, in the midst of all this, in the midst of all the capacity issues that the airlines are having, at least one airline, Delta, doesn't believe any of it. They believe that all of their revenue is going to come from premium passengers. Let's shrink the coach section. We don't care about them in terms of revenue and yield. Let's go for the high-end travelers. Now, unless I'm mistaken, and I don't think I am, the most number of first-class seats I've ever seen on most planes is maybe 12 on domestic flights. Business class and international flights, maybe 30 or 40. Delta Airlines apparently is reconfiguring their brand new Airbus 350 planes for 44 seats in the front of the plane. 44. at extremely high rates. Can they sustain it? I don't think so. But they actually think that the high-end market has money to burn. We will see what happens. Now, some other items in the news. The U.S. Department of Transportation is patting itself on the back, saying that they've hired 2,000 new recruits for air traffic control jobs. Where'd they get them from? They were looking for video gamers. Now, as ludicrous as that might sound, let's be real. Right now, all the drone wars are being fought from nondescript buildings in the Nevada desert by Air Force officers who are essentially gamers doing attacks overseas, but it's happening from Nevada. So looking for gamers to fill air traffic control positions is not a bad idea, but let's put it in perspective in terms of real numbers. Of 313 air traffic control facilities in the United States, 311 of them are still understaffed. So we know there's a problem there. We also know that we don't need 2,000 new controllers. We need 6,000 new controllers. And the wipeout rate during training is about 40% because it's intense training. It's an intense job. And you don't want anybody ever working overtime on that, by the way. And many controllers are doing that now because of the understaffing. But there's one more thing. The wipeout rate during training, gamer or not, is about 40%. So it's a 2-year program before they'll ever let you stand alone at a console and control flights. So this is not a quick fix. And before we congratulate ourselves on hiring all these new recruits, we need to put those numbers in perspective. It's a good start, but it doesn't end the problem. One other note, a lot of you have been asking this, and we're trying to get some answers. We all know that London has an ETA, an electronic visa, if you will, that you have to apply for online. It has to be in conjunction with your U.S. passport, and takes about 72 hours or less to get it. You do it online. The European Union has been trying to put that together for a while. It's called an ETIAS. And every 6 months they announce it, and then every 6 months they delay it 6 months. Well, guess what? They just delayed it again. I don't think it's going to kick in at all in 2026. But you do need it in the United Kingdom. That's already operational. So be aware of that. Okay. Now, speaking of all sorts of government programs, let's talk about the TSA and TSA Gold, or as they call it, Gold Plus. It's an attempt that the TSA has been trying to do for a while to privatize security at airports. At many U.S. airports, it's already there. San Francisco, by the way, has it. I think Tampa is about to install it. These are private security guards trained by the TSA, but they're privatized and they're private companies. What do you think about that? Does that make you feel more secure? I don't feel more secure. You know, we're coming up on the 25th anniversary of 9/11. And who was handling security on 9/11? Private security guards, rent-a-cops. And now they seem to want to be going back to that again. I don't think it's a great idea. The TSA unions don't think it's a great idea. It's bad enough that there's a very high turnover rate among TSA employees. Talk about an intense job. Make it privatized. Who knows? But where's the government oversight? Where's the government training? Is it all about just cutting costs? What do you think about that? I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. Speaking of costs, let's hear it for the TikToker who was shopping at a Shake Shack. And when he ordered his drink, there was a provision there, do you want a tip or not? He punched in not, and the price went up. Roll the video.
My wife says that if you don't tip at Shake Shack, they make it more expensive per item, so we're about to find out.
I know. I'll order 2 shakes just like before.
Okay. See, $5.99.
Okay.
We got strawberry. We got cookies and cream.
There, let's see.
And we got vanilla
This is what we
with
just ordered.
card.
Okay, there
Okay,
it is.
see that? Let's say check out. And then say no. Right here. No.
Uh-oh, there's been a pricing update on one of more of your card items. Please review.
Everything jumped.
Everything just went up 50 cents.
Every item went up by 50 cents. Just making sure everybody knows, do not go.
And there you go. Now, Shake Shack claims it was not responsible for that. It's not their policy for that, but it was happening. Okay, the lesson learned there is, if you want to tip, that's okay. It's always your prerogative. If you don't want to tip, watch the screen, not just at Shake Shack, but anywhere else. Interesting, huh? And the video shows it. Shake Shack didn't deny it. It just said it wasn't their policy. So we'll go from there. Two other notes about security and safety. We talk about TSA in the Gold Plus area. On every plane that operates in the U.S. and most overseas, there's a device in the cockpit called an ACARS. I won't go for what's an abbreviation for, but what it is essentially is a latter-day fax machine that allows the cockpit, either in an automated way or even in a manual override way, to communicate with their operations center when radio communications might be at risk, perhaps in a terrorist example, or just another automated function where the pilots don't have to communicate directly by radio. I'll give you an example. Every time your plane pushes back from the gate and the ACARS detects that the nose gear wheel is in reverse, it sends an automated message at that point to the operations center saying, we've pushed back from the gate. This is our flight time. This is all the parameters you need to know. This is what time we're arriving. There are no surprises at that point, but it lets operations know in Atlanta, Dallas, Chicago, wherever the airline base is, that whatever flight you're on is on the move. It transmits other information as well and can be used to transmit just about anything if you manually override it. Well, consider this recent flight from Las Vegas to Atlanta on Delta, a group of people coming back from a cyber convention, and they somehow managed to break in electronically to the ACARS and send messages that essentially said the airplane was being overtaken by criminals or hijackers. The cockpit saw it, disconnected all the Wi-Fi on board, and you can believe that the plane was met in Atlanta by the FBI. But the point is, and the questions raised is, how are they able to break into the ACARS? That's serious, because the only two things that can communicate via the ACARS that we knew about were the operations center to the aircraft or the aircraft to the operations center. The fact that they were able to break in is of serious concern, and you better believe that every U.S. airline right now is re-examining the structural and electronic makeup of their ACARS, because that's a security loophole that is a little scary. That happened earlier this week. Okay, a couple of other things. And this is a question that's been asked, I guess, probably a dozen times by my viewers, and that is, are your communications your right and your right alone, meaning your electronic communications, your texts, your WhatsApp messages on your cell phone, when you come back to the United States? What are your rights when you're coming back to the US? Well, it might surprise you to know that for as long as I can remember, really you have no rights once you come back to the United States until you're cleared by US Customs and Border Protection and Immigration. So they have the right, unfettered, to search you, your body, what you're wearing, what you're carrying, what you're packing, what you're concealing, anything, before they grant you the right to enter the country. That includes your telephone and what's on that phone. Last year, or in the last 12 months, over 55,000 electronic devices, laptops, iPads, phones, were searched for messages by Customs and Border Protection. And that case is now being litigated in court to see if it falls under a constitutional right protection, even if you haven't cleared the United States yet. So we had an example. It wasn't an American citizen. I believe it was a Norwegian citizen coming to the United States. They asked to see his phone. And according to the reports that we've read, what was on his phone? Essentially a message to a friend of his saying that he didn't like Donald Trump. Now, there's nothing on that phone that said he wanted to kill the president or anything that was an overt threat to the presidency of the United States or that he wanted to overthrow the government. He just said he didn't like Donald Trump, and they denied him entry to the United States. A number of travel agents right now are actually giving advice to their own clients who are American citizens that if they're going to go overseas, just bring a burner phone, leave your own phone at home to avoid that problem. Until this is effectively litigated in court and we determine really what our rights are at U.S. border crossings, the jury's out. But we do know that more than 55,000 devices were inspected last year. And they have apparently, so the court rules, the right to do that. I just thought I'd mention that so you know what's going on. Okay, last but not least, well, the bottom line is, what are you going to do now with the information I gave you? Are you going to delete all your messages, depending on whether who you like, who you don't like, what you said to your friends, your relatives, your loved ones? Isn't that protected free speech? I think it is. I mean, as long as you're not making an overt threat, basically announcing a criminal act or an intent to a criminal act, whatever that is, you should be exempt from those kinds of inspections. But we will have to wait and see what the court rules, because right now we don't know. Let's stream down and say hello to a couple of folks today. Hello to Linda from Naples. She is where the heat index today is supposed to be 110 degrees, just like it was for me 2 nights ago in Las Vegas. Patrick Cooney is saying hi from Terranea. Last time I saw Patrick was at Terranea, I believe. Mary Louise saying a very good morning from Tempe, Arizona. Josh is saying good morning from Springfield, Illinois, birthplace of Abraham Lincoln. Scott's in Chicago. Sue is from Bellingham, Washington. Melanie is saying hi from steamy Miami in August. I'm shocked. Okay, let's keep going here. Southern Utah saying hi. Here's a first. Myanmar saying hi. Hello, Mia from Myanmar. Lawrence is saying, got to go to Smokin' Alice there for best barbecue. Well, I think you're a little late, Lawrence. Smokin' Alice hasn't been in Bayshore, Long Island for at least 10 years. And when it was here, it was great. You think he may have another outlet in Massapequa, but no longer in Bayshore. Okay. Adrian saying hi from Surf City, otherwise known as Huntington Beach. All right. Mark is saying, great Long Island weather today. It ain't bad. There's a little bit of a breeze. Okay. Adrian says, any chance Delta KLM might stop their price or might drop their price from LAX via Amsterdam to Nairobi mid-October? Probably not. I would guess not. My good friend Eddie May, nearby, my next door neighbor in my next door community, otherwise known as Babylon, Long Island. Okay. Mark is saying hi from Bay Harbor Islands. Okay, and he's a native Long Islander, but he's in Florida today. Okay, why can't there be a little more flexibility around non-refundable fares? I forfeited many a flight credit because I just couldn't use it by the expiration date. There's a reason why they call it non-refundable. I'm not going to get angry at them if they're fully disclosing it. But let me put something else in your mailbox here. When you go online to make a reservation, almost always the very first fare you see is a basic economy non-refundable fare. But for $30 more, you can get a main cabin fare, which does get you a flight credit. But the whole idea of refundable fares, here's the only way you get a refund. If you book a ticket and you ask for a refund within 24 hours of originally paying for it, once you get to the 25th hour, it's not non-refundable. You just don't get the money, you get a credit. Good for a year. I have no issue with the airlines for having non-refundable discount fares as long as we get to play by the rules, if you want to do that. But there's a trade-off. A lot of basic economy fares don't earn mileage. You don't get any kind of baggage perks. You don't get seat selection, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But for $30 more, at least I want to be protected if I have to change the flight. Okay. Oh, someone just, here's Jetstar question. Jetstar is a horrid airline. I've flown them twice. Rude flight attendants, super rude gate agents, add-ons for everything. You can't even take water on board, and they don't have free water available. There you go. Everything is a fee, and we all know why. But if you don't, I'll explain it. Airfares are taxed generally at a very high excise tax rate. So for a $100 airfare, that airline may only net about $38. Everything else goes to taxes and government fees. But if they charge you for a bag, that's not a fare, that's a fee. If they charge you for water, that's not a fare, that's a fee, and so on. And that only gets taxed at normal state sales tax of maybe 6 or 7%. So a $100 fee nets the airlines $93 or $94, a whole lot better than $38. Okay. Doris says, hi from Paris. Hello, Doris. Leslie's saying, Leslie from Boca. Oh, you missed Virtuoso for the first time in 9 years. Well, it's 110 degrees, but as you know, Leslie, we never left the buildings anyway during all those conferences. Sorry to miss you, but we'll see you next year. Sandy's saying, hi from Charlotte. We were traveling to Taiwan, South Korea, and Hong Kong. Your Hidden Hong Kong was super helpful. Thank you, Sandy. She's referring to Hidden Hong Kong on PBS, Amazon, Apple TV, and YouTube, available now. She's saying, oh, we're also seeing the drone show in Seoul. Have you ever seen it? I have. It's amazing. I mean, I grew up during the days of synchronized swimming. This is nothing like that. Unbelievable how many drones they get in the air at the same time for precision flying. It's really quite remarkable. You'll enjoy it. Now John's not saying hi from New York. He's back in Miami. Hello, John Lample. Mary Jo is saying hello from Pennsylvania. Can you please tell me the name of the restaurant in Paris that is great salmon? Oh, great salmon. Did I mention? Oh, no, Porto. Yes, I can. It's called, we're talking Portugal and the city Porto. It's 1756 is the name of the restaurant. And order the salmon tataki. I will make you a bet, Mary Jo, that you'll order one, and then you'll look around to see if anyone else is looking, not to embarrass yourself, and you'll order a second one too. It's that good. All right, Donna's saying hi from Maryland. Lorena's saying hi from Lansing. Okay. By the way, I'll be at Wisconsin for our football game in October. And yes, we're playing the Spartans. And we'll see what happens. Okay. Lois is saying hi from Bainbridge Island, Washington. We love that island. Jim's saying hello from Portland. It's 10:54 p.m., but I'd like to watch and learn from you, and that's coming from Myanmar. Okay. Okay. Donna says, I have to warn people that booked online. Recently, a client of mine got an email that looked like it was from me, but it was fish. They told her that if she paid by wire, that she'd save $1,000. Oh my goodness. Total scam. We're dealing with companies that will even use stolen logos. They could either be a Holiday Inn or a Sheraton or an airline posing as an airline. We had one story on a couple of weeks ago where somebody lost $7,000 in a fare differential because they booked with who they thought was Singapore Airlines or who they thought was Lufthansa, and it wasn't. Worst comes to worst, pick up the phone, call the airline and see if they have heard of this. Don't just book it because it looks easy online. That's how they get you. Okay. And in that situation, Donna says, when they lost their money, their bank and credit card company wouldn't protect them. I find that interesting. I'd like to know more about that. If you could ask them to email me, peter@petergreenberg.com, with all the particulars, all the documentation they have. I'm very curious to see what excuse the bank would have for not covering a fraudulent purchase for which they did not receive the goods. All right. Here we go. Colleen saying pilots of a United Airlines flight aborted takeoff at O'Hare International after blowing 2 tires. It's the heat that played a part in these tires blowing out. Is this common? Well, Colleen, it could have been a reason, but keep in mind, most people don't know this because they get scared when I tell them, that almost without exception, aircraft tires are retreads. Want to hear that again? They're retreads. And the reason for that is an aircraft tire is under such pressure that it can only take so many operations, takeoffs and landings, before it's taken out, retreaded, and replaced. So you might have a combination of heat and wear, but I can't answer that question specifically, except to tell you heat does play a role and retreads play a role. We'll find out. All right, Zora saying, great seeing you again. Great seeing you too. Donna saying, it was happening with many agencies getting hacked. Wow. And Patty says, ORD, meaning O'Hare, first time this happened? I don't know. We'll find out. All right. United CEO seems to think that only 2 legacy airlines can operate profitably in the U.S. going forward. Could this imply that AA might not survive? Well, in the cyclical nature of profit and loss, in the last quarter, Delta made a big profit, United made a big profit, and American basically broke even under the same circumstances of oil prices, economy, wars, etc. So the question is, what is American Airlines doing wrong that the other 2 airlines aren't? And is this an indication of the financial future of American? We don't know the answer. But given the nature of restraint of trade and antitrust, I can't believe we would only be left with 2 major airlines in this country that either the Justice Department or Congress wouldn't intervene. It is not consumer friendly to only have 2 mega carriers. It's bad enough as it is that we only have 4, right? United, American, Delta, and Southwest. Where's the competition, especially in individual markets? It's disappearing. And when it disappears, service disappears and prices go where? Up. All right. A couple more things before we get going here. Let me just tell you where we are. Oh, yeah, one more thing. Our radio show this week airs tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Check your local listings. And where is it coming from? The 94th floor of the John Hancock Building, otherwise known as Chicago 360 or 360 Chicago. Great views of the city, great views of Lake Michigan, great views of, in my book, America's best, biggest, most underrated big city. That would be known as Chicago. So check that out. If you can't find it in your market, just go to our website, petergreenberg.com. You'll click the icon and we stream it live starting at 10:05 a.m. Eastern Time. Now let's go to the photo of the week. This was taken by Linda Maxon. She writes, it's the House of Cats in Selçuk, Turkey, near Ephesus. Just about 2 months ago. Turkish citizens embrace their love of cats. You better know that. I know that. They show up everywhere. And that was kind of fun. Cats in the doorways. Every once in a while, we got to celebrate felines. We just did. And if you think your photo qualifies as the photo of the week, you know what to do. Just email us, photocontest@petergreenberg.com. And if we agree that it runs up there alongside of Linda's, then that's exactly where it's going to go. So there you go on that. Most importantly, we'll be running around the world again, starting very soon. We have premieres coming up of a show called Hidden Tahiti, the Royal Tour of Lesotho, Hidden Maine, Hidden Egypt. So not to tell you when they're going to air yet. They will be premiering in the next quarter, but lots of work to be done on that. I hope you got a chance to see it once it's out. I want to thank Anthony for handling the boards out in California today. We're here in New York, where some of you know I'm on duty for the next 2 weeks as a volunteer firefighter, but that won't stop me from joining you again next week for another global travel update. I hope you will join me. And in the meantime, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Peter Greenberg's Global Travel Update is presented by New Mexico True.